You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Good evening. Welcome to episode 115 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne joining you as always. We are back after the All-Star break in the NHL. Guys, how we doing?
Pretty good, Harp. Coming off a fairly busy weekend. It was my birthday on Friday, so I took the day off, and we got about 5.5 hours of skiing in, and then did some bowling that night, a hike on the weekend, a snowshoe on the weekend, and then some puck on Sunday outdoors. So pretty busy all weekend. So feeling pretty good. How about you, Chadwick?
Yeah, I'm in a good mood as well, mostly because I'm working for the weekend this week. I've got a pretty busy week, so that's not really what's got me in a good mood. What's got me in a good mood is looking forward to our ski trip coming up this week. It's going to be a nice little break in the school year for me, and I cannot wait to see all the guys and hang out and hit some bunny hills with Harp. So.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that as well. Definitely in need of a change of scenery just for a weekend and just to kind of get away. And yeah, it's been a few years since I've hit the slopes, boys. So it's gonna be pretty interesting. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, again, just trying to get through the week to get to the weekend. So
yeah, I'm definitely gonna ditch you guys halfway through, so I don't have to do any more green circles or polka dots or whatever they're called.
That's fine. That's fine. And Harper and I will be the first guys in the hot tub cracking a beer at the end of the day, so I cannot wait.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, let's get into this episode, boys. And we're not going to do Fantasy Corner. I should mention that right off the top because of the All-Star break and all of that. The matchup from last week, it just carries over into this week as well. So we're not going to do Fantasy Corner because the matchups are the same. So we've got cap or no cap, and then some breakout candidates, either players or teams for the second half of the NHL season. So we'll get into that as well. Chad, quickly, before we get into all that stuff, you recently put out a Let Us Explain episode on why NHL All-Star Weekend sucks. So did you want to take a minute and plug that in for a sec?
Sure. I actually totally forgot that I did that. That was like an impulse thing over the weekend when I was supposed to be doing my work, and that was a bit of procrastination on my part. Originally, and I said this in the episode, like I proposed it to you guys and thought it would be a good idea for this Monday's episode, but it just wasn't something that we thought we could get a full episode out of. So like, fair enough, right? So I thought, what the hell, I'll do a Let Us Explain. And I talked about how the All-Star Game sucks because obviously that was the topic of the weekend and everyone was talking about it. And I had two main points on how to fix it. So the first one was pick the best players at the All-Star Game. None of this one guy per team shit. That's stupid. Pick the best players to play in the game. And my second point was pick the best players in the league for individual skills to participate in the skills competition. One example I brought up was Martin Furk. A couple years ago in the AHL, he blasted a 109 mile an hour slap shot. If a guy like that plays a minimum number of games in the NHL, why shouldn't he be able to compete in the NHL's hardest shot? So those are my two main points. It all goes towards the idea of making the All-Star Game mean something, because right now it means absolutely nothing, and that's an absolute problem for a lot of things in the NHL.
When you asked us if we wanted to do that episode, like, I would rather talk about paint drying than talk about that on an episode. So it was like, I guess right there, that's a problem in itself. But I like your idea of just having the most skilled guys in each of the skill categories. Kind of have it like a Eurovision, if you've ever watched that. It's like every country does their own competition to get the best song, and then there's like preliminary steps to get to the end, and then all the best countries face off with their best song, like a Rick and Morty episode. And then I think Italy won last year, and it's pretty interesting. And like some random countries like San Marino make it to the end. So you would get guys that you didn't really think of as a superstar, but boy, can he hit a target, you know? So yeah, I think that was interesting.
Also too, like while we're talking about it, I got a text from, well, first of all, the reason I wanted to do that episode in the first place was because I didn't watch the All-Star game, I didn't watch the All-Star skills competition. I watched a bit of the games. The games are better because it's a game. It's more entertaining. The skills is just kind of gimmicky and whatever, but I received multiple text messages saying that, you know, this is the worst performance the NHL has put on because it's so gimmicky and whatever, and no one's watching it. Like none of us really tuned in. So that was the main reason I wanted to make that episode, to talk about how bad it was. But then I also got a text message after I released the episode from a friend. He comments on all our stuff. You guys know him, Jay Ant, my buddy Jay. And Jay said, yeah, like totally agree. They should make it like the NBA, where guys are literally butthurt, like they're upset, they're frustrated if they don't make the All-Star skills or the All-Star game in general. So you need to be picking the best players, because if you're not, what the hell are you doing? And that was essentially my whole point. You need to make it mean something, because right now it sure as shit doesn't.
Yeah, and just quickly before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, I'm glad you brought up the NBA, because like it's so different compared to how the NHL players feel. Like the guys in the NBA really seem to care about the dunking challenge and All-Star weekend in general, rather than representing their countries at the Olympics. And Elliot Friedman actually brought this up, and where in the NHL it's the exact opposite, where guys don't really care about All-Star weekend, but they would rather, you know, go to the Olympics, go to China right now and be there and representing their countries. So anyway, it's pretty interesting to see the difference between the two leagues.
Well, I may be speaking out of turn here because I don't really care or watch, but basketball Olympics, I mean, like one team, right? Am I wrong?
No, you're not. It's Team USA. You're right.
Who really cares? I'd rather watch the All-Star game if I were them too. Also, baseball. Like, that's my way to fix it. Baseball, the All-Star game matters. It means something. It predicts home field advantage.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know what it is in hockey. I'm not I'm not doing that right now, but
yep.
Well, and so I didn't mention this in the episode, but something I wanted to bring up as well, and we should move on because whatever, I did a whole episode talking about my take on this, but what I wanted to bring up was that, like, if it's not going to mean anything, and if the NHL isn't going to like pick the best players and make it mean something for the players themselves and for the fans, right? If they're just going to continue on and make it mean nothing, then just don't do it. Like, name a list of guys to the team, right? To the All-Star team. And then that's a prestigious thing in and of itself, being named to that team. And then either give the guys some time off to just relax in the middle of the season, because Lord knows they need it, especially in these COVID seasons where all the games just get pushed so close together. Either do that, or like Casey said, and I brought this up in the episode quickly as well, do a World Cup of Hockey every year, or every other year.
Every other year.
Like, that would be something cool too. And it's just, so there's a million ways to improve what is currently happening in the NHL for the All-Star weekend. And I touch on a bunch more of those points in the full episode. So go check that out. Let us explain why the All-Star weekend sucks.
I like that the NHL says, oh, we're going to have a World Cup of Hockey before the 2026 Olympics. It's like, oh, thanks. Like, yeah. I have a hard time thinking about Thursday, and you're talking about the 2026 Olympics. Like, way to narrow that one down for us, Benman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, speaking of the Olympics, did you guys see the article in the Toronto Star a couple days ago? It was written by a former female professional hockey player, I believe. And the title of it, and this might have been the editor who picked this title, but the title of the article was "Women's Hockey Does Not Belong in the Olympics." And that writer has received a ton of flack, but it's a bit of spin on that title, right? The rationale in the article goes on to say that it doesn't belong in the Olympics because there's only two teams that can play, Canada and the United States. The other teams get blown out every single time. And so I wanted to see if you guys heard about that, because that's been in the news.
No, I didn't hear about that. That's ridiculous. Absolutely stupid. I think there's a lot of sports that would get tossed in the trash then if you're going to say like only one or two teams win. Like my favorite thing to point out, I don't remember the numbers, but the Netherlands has, let's say, 200 medals in the Winter Olympics. I think 195 of them are speed skating. So like, what are we going to take out speed skating? No.
Or are you going to take out the 100-meter sprint because Usain Bolt won for like 6 Olympics in a row? You know,
it's like, no, you could go on and on in the Olympics saying that, because there is a lot of events that are dominated. I mean, look at total medal count. If that's the case, then half the sports are out because China and USA win everything. So I think that's ridiculous. I've also had a lot of fun watching the women's hockey so far. I know it's a little biased because I'm Canadian. I just watch them pump teams like 12-1 and 11-1, but still fun to watch. Still good hockey.
Yeah. And like, just before we wrap up, like that China-Japan game, for example, the other night went to overtime. It was like 2-1, just a great finish. So no, I mean, don't like that at all. And if that's the case, you'd have to take out other sports as well. And you just can't do that. So, okay, guys, let's move along here. Let's get to cap or no cap. I've got 3 questions for you, gentlemen.
You're now listening to Cap or No Cap right here on the Boys in the Booth podcast.
No cap, this shit bussin'.
And the first one, big topic right now, of course, the future of the Arizona Coyotes, where they're going to be playing in the future, and all of that. So ASU, Arizona State University, will end up working out as a temporary home for the Arizona Coyotes. Cap or no cap, Chad?
No cap. It really seems like the NHL wants to go this route because they want to protect Arizona for the sole reason that it was Gary Bettman's like first prized expansion project that was all his, and he's put so much time and effort into pumping up that city. Not even that city, because they've moved cities, right? Like they've been in Glendale, Phoenix, and now they're just called Arizona, right? So it's Gary Bettman's baby. They're going to put as much time and effort into preserving that franchise as they can. And so I think the next step for Arizona, because they're not going to be playing in the arena where the Phoenix Suns play, I guess the next step that makes logical sense is to play in a 5,000 fan stadium at ASU. So I'll say no cap. I think that happens because the NHL is too committed at this point, even though it would make a million times more sense to just have an expansion team come in, pay the $750 million or whatever it is to get an expansion team, and move the team somewhere else to a different market like Kansas City, Quebec City, Hamilton, Houston. Like there's a million other places. But yeah, I'll say no cap. I think that's what happens. They play at ASU.
Okay, I'm also going to say no cap because no one else wants them. So that right there is enough reason for them to be stuck there. And like you said, they're committed, and also they're not going to get 5,000 fans anyways. So like they could play in the Brockville Memorial Center and still not fill that place. It doesn't really matter where they play as long as they can point enough cameras at the ice that people can watch from home.
Chad, I got to tell you, that Instagram post that you put up, last week, I think it was, that was just genius. I thought that was brilliant about how the Brockville Memorial Center is going to be their next home. That was great.
I got actual messages from people saying, and I won't name names, saying, is this true? Are they actually playing in Brockville? And I went, no, God. So disclaimer for everyone listening, they're not going to be playing in Brockville, just to be absolutely clear on that.
Oh, God. And guys, before we move on to the next question for cap or no cap, we should note as well that, in order to make ASU work as a temporary home for the Coyotes, Alex Morello and ownership would have to fork out, $20 million for the renovations, certain renovations to that destination. So anyway, it'll be a story that we will continue to watch. Okay, number 2 for cap or no cap, Josh Hosang is going to play for Team Canada, of course, the men's hockey team at the Olympics. He will earn himself an NHL contract post-Olympics. Cap or no cap, Casey?
Cap. I don't see it happening. This guy's a quadruple A player that's kind of just been stuck in a rut for the X amount of years, and he might have an NHL contract, a 2-way contract where he's going to live in the AHL and make a living there before he goes to Europe. I just don't see it happening. It hasn't worked out anywhere he's been so far, any chances he's gotten. And it's like, it's the same old song and dance that I've seen over and over again with these quadruple A players that it's like, I've kind of given up on because I've seen enough of them in New Jersey, and that's a bad team. So, cap.
I'm going to say no cap for this one. He does get an NHL contract after the Olympics because I think, first of all, if you look at this team, he's probably the most skilled or talented player on the roster. He might not be the best, and that's an important distinction to make, but he might be the most skilled. And he's going to have a lot of eyeballs on him because there aren't many, big names on this team. And so he's going to have people watching him play in the Olympics. So there's that. But go on.
But if that's the case, then Corey Conacher would have had an NHL contract years ago because he was lighting up in the Spangler Cup every single year. It's like,
right. And listen, fair enough. Like maybe that's the case, but I think Josh Hosang still has a shot because he's taken the time in Toronto. He's clearly changed his attitude around, because that was his big problem, right? He didn't want to play in the American League. He didn't report to, I believe it was the Bridgeport Sound Tigers the first time he got sent down. He's had a million issues with his attitude. And now, like, you watch him in a press conference and he's been on the record saying, I don't care if I play in the ECHL. I just want to play hockey and focus on getting to the next level and win with my teammates, et cetera, et cetera. Seems like he's really turned a page. And even though I'm saying no cap to this question that I think he does get a contract, I don't know if it'll be with the Maple Leafs because I don't see where he slots into the lineup. Like, is he going to take out Pierre Engvall out of the lineup and play on the fourth line? Probably not, right? And then even so, like, Nick Robertson is probably a better option if you want a skilled forward to play in your lineup. So I don't think he makes it with the Leafs, but he has come out and said that he's open to receiving offers from other teams. And if that's the case and he gets an offer and he signs a contract, like say with a team like Arizona, that's fantastic for him because I think, he's worked his bag off this year and he deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, well, in Toronto, first of all, like there's just way too long of a list ahead of him. Like even Denny Malgin that we've talked about enough off the record is ahead of him when it comes to skilled players. And that's the problem is if he's going to get a spot in the NHL, he's got to figure out a Jimmy Vesey type scenario where he comes in and plays in a bottom six role and figures out a different way to play the game because he's not fitting into a top six anywhere and he's not a bottom six player. So he's got to figure out how to play bottom 6 minutes if he's going to make it.
Yeah. And, with the Maple Leafs, too, quickly, like you've got Nick Ritchie and Kyle Clifford now in the American Hockey League. So a couple more guys who, really are bottom 6 regulars in the NHL. But, just with the number of bodies that the Leafs have in that forward group and, part of it being that Ritchie hasn't really worked out, those guys get pushed down to the American Hockey League. So I thought this was an interesting question to ask because I listened to an interview that Shane Doan did recently with The Athletic. He, of course, is taking over as the general manager for Team Canada at the Olympics. And so, he was rattling off names and being asked about like the usuals, right? Owen Power, Devin Levi, Eric Stahl, like really those 3 in particular. And so, but then he was asked, who's kind of an under the radar guy to watch for? And he did mention Josh Hosang. And so Doan, of course, is with the Coyotes. They're a rebuilding team. They're giving different guys opportunities that they would not have anywhere else, like a Travis Boyd, for example. I don't know. I could see Hosang going in, having a really good tournament, Shane Doan being there, working with the Coyotes. I could see a possible fit. So I just thought it was a good question to ask.
I don't know. He's good. The reason why he's a player to watch in Canada is because he's going to play top 6 minutes on that Team Canada. So it's like we're just I think we're a broken record here in saying that he can't play like top 6 in the NHL. Even Arizona has a better top 6 than Josh Hosang. Like one of them was just an all-star. So I don't know. They got to trade the whole team before he makes the top 6, I think. So I just see a lot of problems there. And I do want to poke a little thing in there. A player to watch is Mason McTavish. Put a future bet on him. $1 returns $50 if he leads the team in points.
Oh,
why not?
Nice.
Yeah,
yes,
really?
and that was a name that I did not mention, but absolutely a player to watch. I mean, there's no question about it for sure.
While we're talking about like quadruple A players, Josh Hosang, the Marlies came up a couple times. I just wanted to get something in quick. Is that, and I know you guys are rolling your eyes already, but the KHL announced yesterday or maybe 2 days ago now that they've canceled the rest of their season because of the Olympics. So many players are going to the Olympics to compete for various teams, not just Russia. So they canceled their season. Standings are based on points percentage. And then when they come back after the Olympic break, they're going straight into playoffs. Russia, what a chaotic, weird league, but that's what they're doing. So one thing that means is that some prospects who might not be in the starting lineups for their KHL teams come playoff time might make the decision to come back to North America and play for their American League affiliates. One guy that I've heard this rumored about is Rhodey on Amirov, and case I'm thinking about you, maybe a guy like Mccann comes back and plays in the AHL. So that's something to keep an eye on. I'm not saying that any of those guys actually will. I'm just saying that there are rumors out there that we might see a guy like Rhodey on Amirov playing in the AHL as soon as this season, which would be incredible because he's playing like 4 minutes a night right now in the KHL, which is stupid. Like, why bother?
Yeah. Okay. If you're playing 4 minutes a night in the KHL, like just go play in the MHL and really light up for the rest of the year and then play the AHL next year. That would be my route. But that's definitely an opportunity for like Shakir to come over and guys like that. But I know Shakir and Arseny Gritsyuk were both invited to the Russian Olympic Committee's team. So I know Gritsyuk's on there. I don't know if Mccann made it.
Yeah. Anyway, just something I thought I'd throw out. I heard that. I read an article about it yesterday. So there you go.
No, for sure. That's great. Okay, last one for cap or no cap, guys, before we move on. Chris Kreider having an unbelievable year with the New York Rangers. Good team, by the way. They're looking like a contender right now. He will score 50 goals this season. Cap or no cap, Chad?
Cap, 100% cap. This episode that we're doing, obviously we've done cap or no cap, and we're going to get into the bulk of it. We're talking about breakout candidates. Well, maybe next week we should do an episode talking about regression candidates, and number one would be Chris Kreider. Chris Kreider has 50% of his goals roughly on the power play, and they all come from just banging in loose pucks as you do on the power play. Chris Kreider has never had a season like this. I would be interested to see what his advanced stats look like, in terms of his expected goals for. I'm sure he's scoring way above his expected goals. And so if that's the case, that's not a good thing. There's zero chance he hits 50 goals. And play this when he does, because now that I've said it, he probably will. But this is Chris Kreider we're talking about, guys. There are only a handful of players right now in the NHL on pace to score over 50 goals. He's one of them. I think he's on pace to score 58 or something last time I looked. So if it happens, I will be absolutely shocked. But if we're talking about regression candidates, Chris Kreider is number one. And the Rangers in general, I think, are right up there as well. So I don't think he hits 50 goals, so I'll say cap.
I don't know. For the sake of an argument, I'll say no cap. I hate this man. I really do. Okay, I don't hate him. That's mean. But I hope he doesn't hit 50. That's for sure. But, I mean, he has to score half the goals he scored in the first half of the year and the second half of the year to hit 50. So it's mathematically playing on that team, on that line. I can see him hitting 50, no problem. He needs 17 goals for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I think that's possible, especially if they keep playing on the power play and keep playing New Jersey, then they'll be fine. They'll put up 600 goals.
Regardless, though, it's just he's a power forward. He is that typical power forward, and it's just great to see that kind of player having the amount of success that he is.
If Jack Hughes didn't play on his line in the All-Star game, I think Jack would have a new car right now, because he sent him on like 3 breakaways, and old Stan, he can't run into the goalie to score in the All-Star game. So he missed all 3 of those opportunities. I was like, God, can we get someone who can finish on Jack's line so that he can get a couple more apples and a free car? Thanks.
Oh my God, that's great. Okay, guys, good stuff. Cap or no cap for episode 115. And now let's get into breakout candidates for the second half of the NHL season. So again, like we said off the top, it can be a player or a team, just whoever you think is going to break out in the second half of this season. So Casey, let's go to you first with your breakout candidate for the second half.
Yeah, it's only natural that we come into these only supposed to have 1 player, but I'm going to have 2 because, I do it every single time. I've got 2 that I'm going to bang off pretty quick here. I don't have a lot to talk about these guys, but it's mostly due to scenario and mojo, I guess you'd say. My first one's Jordan Kairu. I think this guy's going to have it's hard to say a breakout when he's already having a career year in the first half, but this guy's going to have a banging second half. He's got so much momentum going right now. He's been an all-star. He was the fastest skater. He played really well in the all-star game. He had 4 points, looked good out there, a lot of good opportunities. He is doing it on all the big stages, 4 apples or 4 points, whatever it was in the Winter Classic game, the most ever. So this team is on a roll right now. That line he's playing on is hot with Robert Thomas and Tarasenko. That's playing really well. So this team's in a playoff spot right now. They're the 4th place team, so they've got to push hard. And I think the end of the season is going to be thought of as a big stage, and that's when Jordan Kairu is going to continue to shine. He played really well last year. He's getting better and better. He's coming into his prime. He's only 23 years old. He's got 1 more year after this, so he's got to be pumping up those numbers to get some sweet money. I'm thinking Jordan Kairu is going to blow up here in the second half.
I like that one. I would add as well, if we're talking about the Blues, I would add another guy, David Perron, who has had a couple slow weeks over the last few weeks, and he's bound to bounce back as well. I actually dropped him in fantasy, my other fantasy league, and I'm kind of hoping nobody notices him there, just kind of chilling in the free agents, because as soon as he gets hot again, I'm picking him up, because he's a fantastic fantasy player. He just hasn't been able to score as much this season as we're kind of used to. Last year, I believe he was about 1 point per game, but I guess because Tarasenko and Kairu and all those guys playing so well, maybe the points are spread out more. But anyways, that's another guy case, but Kairu's a good one. Good point.
Yeah, really good one. And if I could just jump in here quick, I think really just has been so important to the Blues this season. I think the Blues, they needed a boost from somewhere, and they're getting it from their youth. And Kairu's a big part of their future. Robert Thomas, as you mentioned, Case, Jake Neighbors, who started off the year with them before getting sent down. He looked good early on as well. But yeah, Kairu just seems to be able to do everything, and he can absolutely fly out there, as we saw over the All-Star weekend. So no, that's a good pick. I like it.
All right, now to smash through my second one, I don't have a lot to say about him once again, but I'm going to talk about Anton Lindell. We've talked about him briefly in our Calder Watch episode at the beginning of the year. We kind of knew that he was going to have a good season. We didn't think it was going to be this good. He has 32 points already, but the reason why I think that he's going to have a great second half is momentum. First of all, he's coming into the All-Star break with a lot of momentum, especially with that 5-point night. And then another guy who's playing on a very hot line in what's his name? Toronto Maple Leafs, terrible trade. What is it? Sorry. Marchand. And Sam Reinhart, that line is really clicking. And the nice part about it is they're starting to see some favorable matchups, because the other team's best lines are having to play against, the best line in hockey right now in Huberdeau, Barkov, and Duclair. That's a given. They're got to play against the shutdown line. And then even Verhaeghe, Bennett, and Tippett is playing against, the stars of the other team. So it's a really favorable matchup right now. Lindell's getting, he's got the air under his wings right now. I think he's going to have a great second half of the season, especially if they start starting him in the offensive zone. That'd be amazing. He starts, I have the number here, 8.7% in the offensive zone.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's like 8.7 offense, 11.8 neutral, 20.3 defensive, and 59.3 on the fly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little jaded. It's not like Hockey Reference where it's just the two. But looking at Money Puck, 8.7%. It's like, let's get this guy starting in the offensive zone on the power play.
Yeah.
Lots of points. Could still win the Calder. Like, come out of nowhere and take it.
Yep.
He could. That's a good one, Case. I like that line. Don't agree that the Marchment trade was a terrible trade, and I'll die on that one, on that hill. But I think it's a good one. Lundell's a good player, man. We knew coming into this season, like you said, that he was going to be a good player, but he has sort of exceeded expectations in a way, but also underperformed in a way. Like, imagine if he's up playing top 6 minutes, which might happen down the stretch. If he's able to play on the top line with Huberdeau and Barkov, what happens then? What does his, point total look like after that? So that's a good one for another breakout candidate.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. Big body out there. And, for how deep that forward group is, the Panthers haven't sheltered him. And you got to give a lot of credit to Andrew Brunette, their head coach, and, Bill Zito, like just everyone there, putting him in positions to learn and grow and even have success. And, but also where in positions where he's going to make mistakes, like defensive zone faceoffs and things like that. Just as an example, he's getting the opportunities and a lot more than I thought he would get in his rookie season, being on such a deep team, particularly that forward group. So, and look, like, I think Florida will take a big swing at the trade deadline. I think it'll be a defenseman, whether it's a Sherratt or a Chychrun or whoever, but Chychrun specifically. I don't think we're going to see Lundell's name out there in a package for a guy like Chychrun or whoever. He's certainly there to stay. He's going to learn and grow. And he's got a fellow countryman in Alex Barkov that he gets to learn from. Like, it's the perfect scenario for him. But we'll wait and see. Maybe there are some injuries down the middle for the Panthers that he needs to slide up the lineup. So we'll wait and see. But no, that's a good pick as well. And a dark horse pick for the Calder. Chad, let's get your breakout candidate now. Player or team? What did you go with?
I also went with a player, and I went with this guy because of the team that he plays for. So it's a bit of both, I would say. And he plays for the Ottawa Senators. It's Jimmy Stu. It's Timmy Stutzla. That's who I picked as a breakout candidate for the second half of this season. First of all, because the Sens need something. They need some sort of hope. They haven't had a great season. They've been far worse than they expected to be. And I think it's because of a fair amount of players who just aren't finishing. Brady Tkachuk, that's the one guy who you think of who, puts a ton of shots on net, but doesn't necessarily finish as much as you'd like him to, at least when you consider what his expected goals are compared to his actual goals. So another guy that this season so far who's fitting into that category is Tim Stutzla. He has 8 goals, 13 assists, 21 points in 39 games played this season. It's not terrible. He's about, just over half a point per game. But if I look back to when I did when I was drafting for fantasy, I used Dom Luszczyszyn's fantasy projection model. And Dom actually had Timmy Stutzla projected to score roughly 60 points. About 62 points he had him, calculated for based on his model. So that's something to think about. Players underperform and overperform all the time, but that was sort of the base and what we were expecting, about 25 goals or maybe 30 goals and in and around there. That's kind of what we were expecting this year. But he's scoring at pretty much the exact same pace as he was last season and hasn't really taken a step that we thought he would. So I think Tim is going to be a guy who breaks out in the second half because all the numbers are pointing towards that. And let me tell you some of the numbers first, and then we can kind of chat about him in the Sens. So I told you his points and his goals and assists and his points. But the main one that I'm looking at right now is that he's first in Corsi for percentage on the Sens, and he's first in on-ice expected goals percentage for the Sens as well. He's fourth in total expected goals for, but he's sixth in actual goals. He should have roughly 2 or 3 more goals than he does this season, so that's not massive, but he's getting the chances and just not finishing as much as you would expect him to. His shooting percentage is at an all-time low, and it's funny to say all-time low because he only played last season, but he's shooting at 8.8%. Last season, he was shooting at about 11, I believe, something like that. And again, like I said, he's averaging just 0.54 points per game. Last season, he averaged 0.55. So he hasn't taken a step. You can't say that's a regression because it's negligible. They're basically the same number, but he's playing more minutes this season as well. And so with all of that combined, I just look at it and I say, this is a guy who is playing power play time. He's playing top 6 minutes. He's getting the opportunities. He's just not burying. So I think Tim Stutzla and the Senators in general are candidates for a breakout in the second half, or at least better than what they were in the first half, because my God, they were abysmal in the first half.
Yeah, when you're thinking about an episode like this, and you're thinking about breakout candidates, it's easier to work backwards and think about guys who are having disappointing starts to the season. And I think there's an argument to be made that this is a disappointing start, regardless of, 20 points in 39 games isn't nothing for a sophomore slump. But it's definitely not really what we expected from Stutzla. We kind of wanted him to take a big step for this team and try to turn them in the right direction. They definitely have guys that are doing that. Batherson, Norris, Formanton.
Formanton's having a good year.
Yeah, I was kind of stumping there, but yeah, it was definitely Jimmy that we wanted to be doing that, and it hasn't quite happened yet, but not for a lack of trying.
Yeah, exactly. And you watch a Senators game, and Casey, your family, everyone's a Senators fan, and so you certainly watch them enough, I would think. And you watch a Sens game, and Stutzla is all over the ice. He's getting so many chances. He actually has a pretty good physical presence to him as well. He will be out there throwing body checks. And actually, the last Sens game I went to against the Islanders, he did get into a fight with somebody. Just as a fun little note as well. But yeah, you know what? Young player. I think he's going to be a star in this league. And DJ Smith has said before that he's just going to continue to ride him and give him all the opportunities in the world to try and succeed, to try and put the puck in the back of the net. And we've seen this story before with the Senators as a team, right? Last season, they got off to just a terrible start. And this season, that's happened once again. And it just goes to show how a really rough start to the season can kind of kill a team for the rest of the year. And, there have been other factors as well. Injuries, like Connor Brown's been out for a while. They're just getting him back into the lineup. That'll be huge. Batherson is out, which sucks. He's had a career year for the Senators. They've had poor goaltending that has just gotten better. Matt Murray in particular, of course, and COVID. They had a terrible COVID outbreak not too long ago as well. So a lot of factors, I think, with this team. But I think it's a great pick. I think much like last season, the second half will be better for the Senators. And a big part of that will be because of Tim Stutzla.
Well, Harp, I'll be watching them in 27 minutes. So they're playing Perfect. The Devils tonight.
Yes, that's right. Awesome. All right. Well, fellas, I'll move on to my breakout candidate now. And I've got a team that I went with. And then I do want to mention I do have an honorable mention that is a player that I don't think you guys will expect. So I'll bring that up as well. And the team that I'm going with as a breakout candidate are the Winnipeg Jets. I just think that they are way better than their record indicates. They're 18, 17, and 7 on the season, 43 points in 42 games, 6th place in the Central Division. Again, I don't think they're going to be able to make the playoffs at this point, but who knows? I mean, there are still a lot of games left, but I mean, it just gets tough when those top 4 continue to rack up points. Colorado, Nashville, St. Louis, and Oh, who's the other team I'm missing here, guys? Help me out for a second.
Minnesota.
Dallas, is it? Minnesota. Oh my God, Minnesota. Duh. So yeah, it gets tough when those top four are racking up points like crazy. But I will say, you've got the Dallas Stars ahead of the Winnipeg Jets, not by much. And I don't have a good feeling about the Stars right now. It's been such an up and down year for them. So Winnipeg could certainly catch them, I think. And just maybe if they can go on a big run and grab a wild card spot, I certainly could see it happen. Again, they had a coaching change. Dave Lowry comes in after Paul Maurice resigns. It hasn't worked out so far, but I do think that they're in a good direction here, and they are going to get things together in the second half. Get some guys healthy, like a Logan Stanley, like a Nikolai Ehlers. But even with a few guys out, like, this is still a really deep team. And Connor Hellebuyck is a really good goalie. Cole Perfetti has stepped in as a young player. He has not looked out of place. And guys that are kind of having years that they don't want to have right now, like Mark Scheifele in particular. I just think this team is too good and is better than their record indicates. And I think are poised to have a better second half of the season and maybe go on a nice little run here. What do you guys think?
Yeah, okay, a couple things here. First of all, you just mentioned a couple guys having off seasons. Well, I think you hope to have more than 2 goals from your captain, especially when he's kind of known as a goal scorer. So that's definitely a first one. The other thing is you're just like perfectly tying in what I said before about looking at teams that are having or players that are having a disappointing start to find a team that could have a breakout second half, because we all had these guys way higher in the standings at the beginning of the year, and we love their forward depth, and we thought they kind of fixed the defensive end of things. Well, it just hasn't quite worked out, and I don't know if maybe it's because it was just my birthday and you guys are trying to pump me up or something, but you're really getting me excited about fantasy, because I just picked up Jimmy today in fantasy to play against the Devils tonight, and I have Dubois and Kyle Conor on my team. So I'm like, I hope we're right about everything so far, because it's going to be beneficial to me. But yeah, Winnipeg's definitely a team that I want to see turn around. And, they had the coaching change and everything. I think there's a lot pointing towards a better second half of the season. And it'd be amazing if they could pull out a wild card. And honestly, the West is such a wild card that it could happen.
Case, if you're pumped for fantasy, I would advise not looking at our projections.
Dude, second highest projections in the entire league, projected to lose.
But not even lose, Case. Projected, and okay, I'm pumping my own tires right now, because we were projected to tie at the start, or roughly tie. But right now it says I'm going to beat you by Marner. I'm going to beat you by 60 points, and you're the second most total points in the league right now. But yeah, anyways, so just a little jab there. We didn't have a fantasy corner, so I wasn't able to pump my own tires. But
I'm not worried about it. I still got 39 games left here, so I'll figure it out maybe. But dude, freaking Mitch Marner against the Devils killed me. Double killed me.
Yeah. Marner had like 24 points in 2 games or something in fantasy.
Yeah,
so
all against New Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched. Yeah. I lost my love of hockey. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so last week Casey said he's not watching hockey anymore. He's quitting the podcast. He's dropping out of fantasy because he doesn't love hockey anymore because the Devils suck. Isn't that right, Case?
Well, that's not quite what I said. I basically said I'm going to be useless on the podcast because I'm not watching hockey for a little while.
Been there though, like watching the Carlisle Leafs, and whatever.
And then Chad had the nerve to say to me, "It's one game. It's one game." What are you talking about?
Well,
How about
that was
10 years, Chad. How about 10 years, one game? How about 6-32 in their last 38 games? How about that?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't feel sympathy, and Harper shouldn't either, because our 2 fan bases have probably gone through the most pain in NHL history, the Leafs and the Sabres. But the Devils, of late are pretty close. But there's a lot of good things to look forward to there. Those games against Toronto were hilarious, man. Like, those were so silly. Like, that's the only word I can think to explain them. So silly. But
Chad, did did you want to touch on the Jets even for a second? Or?
Yes, I did.
Guys, I love the fantasy talk, but I just, we're talking about the Jets here.
I wanted to
my
pick.
pick.
But Chad just kept going.
Thank you for reeling us back in. I'm expected to wallop Casey this week by 60 points. We'll see what happens in fantasy. But the Jets, their top six is overrated. I think it has been for a long time. But that's not even the problem. It's still a good team, extremely deep. Their third line is ridiculous. Like, they have some of the best. They have one of the best forward groups collectively. They're top 12 in hockey. So, yes, it should be doing better. But I can say that while also holding the opinion that their top six is overrated, and I do. But having said both of those things, they're missing Nick Ehlers right now. Nick Ehlers has been hurt. Blake Wheeler was hurt before. You mentioned Stanley's been out. Ehlers is having a bit of a down year, so that's a guy to look for, maybe to break out when he does come back for injury. But it's not Connor Hellebuyck. He's having another fantastic season. I posted about that on our Instagram about a week ago. He's one of the leaders in goals saved above expected again, which is just to be expected now from that guy. So they shored up their defense. We talked about coming into this year, what was the main thing that was bad for the Jets last season? Well, it was their defense. And then, they went out and they did something about it. And then the whole Dubois trade, like, he didn't come off a great season because of, being traded in the middle of the year or whatever. And he's having a full year with the team. So everything pointed towards the Jets being better this year, but they just haven't. They haven't had cohesiveness of all of their guys working well together at the same time. So I think definitely the Jets are a breakout candidate for the second half. But playoffs, I don't know.
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but I really think that Connor Hellebuyck and John Gibson need to hit up Officer Bob and get his agent, and so that they can move teams, get a sick contract, and then get good again. Hellebuyck and Gibson have just been in hell the last couple of years, or last handful of years. Gibson less so this year, but man, it's got to feel bad to be Hellebuyck, just constantly one of the best goalies in the league and just not getting anywhere with it.
It's not even close either. Like, it's not even like if you played, like, who is their bat? It's not even Brossoit anymore, is it? It's
Eric Comrie.
Like, what if you played Comrie 82 games? You'd get killed. Like, it wouldn't even be close. Like, Hellebuyck is so good. So, I don't know. Sucks
well, and Hellebuyck said before the start of the season, right? Like, we only have so much time left. Like, we're kind of running out of time here, and that is very true. It's very much a veteran group, and I don't know. I just think maybe they've gone a little bit stale. But I do look at this team on paper, and even with some of the key guys out of the lineup, like, they're still so deep. They've got to be better, and I think they will in the second half.
I'll say this while we wrap up on the Jets and this episode in general. I really liked and respected Paul Maurice stepping down from the head coaching position and saying, listen, I've taken this team as far as I think I can. It's not that I was a bad coach or the team isn't performing, et cetera, et cetera. It was just he recognized that he took the team as far as he could, and that someone else, a new motivator, needed to come in to get them going. So I really respected that. I wanted to say that about Maurice.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And you know what? Like, maybe it's not Dave Lowry who has been there, right? Maybe it needs to be someone completely new that they bring in. But I think, that's something for more of the offseason. So anyway, we'll wait and see. I do think this team is good, and they will be a lot better in the second half. Okay, my honorable mention before we wrap up, it's a player, Jonas Donskoi, was looked at as being, good opportunity for him in Seattle to play top 6 minutes. I thought for sure he was going to be able to, score a bunch of goals and really help out this team. But Seattle's been awful this season in their inaugural season in the NHL, of course. They made some moves that we thought they'd be a little bit better. It just hasn't worked out. Anyway, Donskoi has 1 goal this season, guys. He had 17 last year with the Colorado Avalanche, a team that he fit in really well with. And I just think that if Donskoi were to move to another team, like a Colorado, even like a San Jose, where he was before as well, a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, like at least in the hunt in that Pacific Division, I just think Donskoi would be able to, put the puck in the back of the net, playing with some better players. I mean, he's had all kinds of chances this year with Seattle, just hasn't been able to finish. I think a change of scenery for him would really benefit the guy because he's a good player.
Yeah, I have a hard time here. First of all, I have to make my shot that I make every time. Like, who would have projected Seattle to be bad? Oh, me. Team that on paper is garbage. Anyways, I just have a feeling that, Donskoi had the seasons he's had in the past because of very favorable circumstances. Like playing on Colorado last year, he was getting a real Anton Lindell treatment where he was playing against a lot of favorable matchups on a very good Colorado team. And then even the years before that, he's playing on San Jose when they're really good and making playoff pushes. So, there's two arguments to be had there. Like maybe those teams are so good because of guys like Donskoi pushing that depth, but it could also be made the other way that Donskoi is putting up the numbers he has in the past because he's playing on good teams. And I really don't know where I settle on it with him. So maybe it would be interesting to see him get pushed to a playoff contender before the deadline just to see what kind of guy he is. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, we'll take him in Toronto. That'd be great. Like, why not? He's a player available. Link him to Toronto.
I think he makes more than $12 a year, so I don't think he can go to Toronto.
They can take Nick Ritchie and 10 first-round picks in return. I don't care. Just get Ritchie off the books. Thick Rich. What I'll say
Donskoi,
Sorry, Harp. What I'll say about Donskoi is that I think he's in a position where he's being expected to kind of drive a line rather than riding shotgun. And we've seen a million players who've come into the league who can put up really great numbers in terms of goals, assists, points, but aren't able to actually drive a line themselves. It's because they know where to be and know how to get to the areas where good players can find them, right? We've seen a million shotgun players. One in particular that I think we've seen now, and it might be a bit of a shot to say this, but I think Taylor Hall is very much that kind of player. Like he had that one incredible season in Jersey where he drove not only his line, but the entire team. But I think he's a shotgun player. Like there are other guys too who you can think of, obviously. But I think Donskoi might be that guy, as opposed to another Seattle player like a Jared McCann, who's having a fantastic year. He's like the heartbeat of that team. And so they're just different players, and maybe he works if he goes to a contender, Donskoi that is, and fits in a similar position like he was in Colorado, like he was in San Jose. But yeah, it's tough, man. Like you would expect he's going to start scoring because he's done it before. But then again, if he doesn't have anyone to drive a line for him, then who knows? Maybe it won't come.
Yeah.
Jared McCann is the Tyler Ennis of Chad Melbourne, first of all. God, you love that guy.
Yeah.
Secondly, you missed the biggest shotgun player of all time, and that's Chris Kunitz.
Well, obviously.
Obviously. That's a good one.
That's the one. That's like he made the Olympics.
Playing alongside Crosby and winning Stanley Cups and getting nice passes, scoring goals. My goodness, what a career for that guy. That's a really good one. I did not think of that. Anyway, I wanted to bring Donskoi up. I just can't believe he has one goal in the season. And that's really what it comes down to for me. And Seattle has just been terrible, and I think a new setting for him would be good because he's proved before that he can chip in offensively and give you some good depth. And he's got some term at a reasonable cap hit. I think if he was in a good situation, he makes $3.9 million this season and next season. So who knows? Maybe there's a team looking to make a push that takes a flyer on him.
Yeah, that's great. If he's scoring 17 goals, I'll pay him $3.9 billion all day. So,
with a B, a billion.
Did I say billion?
No, I thought I heard Case say billion. It could just be...
No, it just came out weird.
Okay.
What I will say about Seattle, I know we're going long. We should end this up here. What I will say about Seattle is if they got goaltending, they wouldn't be in the dumpster of the league.
It's true.
If they just got some goaltending. They have two guys who have played well below what they were expected to. And you can prove that in the stats looking at goals saved above expected. Well, it's not goals saved above expected. It's goals saved well below expected because they're not saving a beach ball this year. So I will say that.
No.
I know Seattle's bad. In case, I know you're going to get on me when we have our episode talking about our predictions. But I think they're a bubble playoff team if they get league average goaltending, and I will die on that hill.
Chad, if my uncle had wheels for legs, he'd be a car. So,
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Looking forward to this weekend up at Blue Mountain, and we will be back with episode 116 next week. So thanks so much for listening and for putting up with us as always. Enjoy the return of NHL games this week. Again, you can check out Chad's episode about why NHL All-Star Weekend sucks. And again, thank you so much for hanging out with us for episode 115, and we'll talk to you again next week.
bye. Have a good time.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details, and don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at www.patreon.com/boysinthebooth.